Howdy gang, I'm back. And I believe it's time for a DIY/crafting video for the first time in a hot minute. Today, I'm making another enamel pin hoop. Another, you say? Why yes, because I did make one on here before, but it's been literal years since then, so I'm happy for a chance to make another one. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, enamel pin collectors that are more on the crafty side like to take wooden embroidery hoops and put fabric in them, and use them to display their enamel pin collections. This works great if you want to have a more cutesy, decorative display, and you don't necessarily have enough wall space for a corkboard. I made this one to display my grand total of 3 Yuri on Ice pins a couple of years ago, but this time instead of making one to display multiple pins, I'm making one for one singular pin. That's right, we're going miniature, baby! And here is our muse, the pin in question. Isn't she gorgeous? You can get this lovely Princess Tutu pin from Chibi Musume on Instagram, who, by the way, saw my reel I posted of the making process of this hoop and commented on how much she loved it, and I may or may not have fangirl squealed a little because oh my god! But enough of the rambling, let's get to it. Of course, I drew out my plan in my sketchbook first. There are a few things I had to change in the process of making this, but we'll get there when we get there. First things first, I got out a wooden embroidery hoop that's about 4 1/4 inch in diameter and separated the two rings, setting the inner ring aside for later. Then I got out some matte white acrylic paint and painted the entire outer ring minus the hardware at the top. I did 2 coats to make it almost entirely opaque. Then once that dried down, I got out my pearl white acrylic paint and put a coat of that over top. This will make the hoop fully opaque and keep the layers of paint minimal. After that dried down, I sealed the whole thing with a coat of polyurethane glaze. Fair warning, since it's water-based, it'll take longer to dry than the paint. And now we bring back the inner ring. I cut out a piece of white felt and a scrap piece of pink bridal satin and layered them over top of the inner ring. I was also gonna add a layer of pink organza over the top, but when I did it, it didn't look the way I thought it was going to, so I scrapped it. Then I got the outer ring and pressed it down over top of the whole thing to wedge the fabric in between the rings, and screwed the outer ring on as tight as I could so the fabric wouldn't move. You can gently thump the center to test the tautness, and if it doesn't cave where you thumped it, you're good to go. Now to fully secure the fabric onto the inner ring, I used pink embroidery floss to sew a long base stitch all the way around about 5/8 of an inch away from the hoop. And I started my stitch with the knot on the inside of the fabric so it won't be facing outwards. Once I made it full circle, I pulled on the thread so the fabric draws up around the hoop like a drawstring purse, tied off the thread and cut away the excess fabric. Then I fired up the old hot glue gun and fray checked the edges of the satin while I was waiting for it to heat up. If you're using a fabric that doesn't fray like velvet, felt, or spandex, you can skip this step. Once your hot glue gun is warmed up, pick a section of the hoop, add a line of glue on top of it, and then press the fabric down over top of the glue and hold it down until the glue cools off. Repeat this process until all of the fabric is glued down. I know it looks funny on the back when it's all done, but this helps it not be seen from the front so it looks nice and clean. And now we move on to decorations. My initial plan was to have some pink organza pleated around the hoop to emulate a tutu, but after the first strip I cut ended up being too thin, every other strip I cut after that would not come out straight or even no matter what I tried. So after cutting up almost all of the pink organza I had left, I gave up and switched gears. I got out some white satin ribbon of medium-ish width and used that instead. I made the pleats by hand and pinned them all in place with a lot of sewing pins and took the whole shebang over to my sewing machine and tacked them down with a straight stitch. I had to speed all this up to 10x because I was going slow and didn't want to mess up, because satin fabric is very finicky and satin ribbon is no different. I take no chances with that. I hope you kept your hot glue gun running, because now you're gonna hot glue your newly made trim all the way around the front of the hoop, one section at a time. And I ended up having to cut off excess trim because I thought I made just enough, but turns out I made a little extra. But oh well, better to be safe than sorry. And now for Tutu's crown. I drew up a template and cut it out of a piece of warbler, which I'm gonna cover in gold leafing. Oh yeah, that's right, we getting fancy. I chose the textured side of the warbler to face the front and primed it with a layer of Mod Podge, waited for it to get tacky, and added the gold leaf on top. This was my first attempt at doing gold leafing on anything, so I was a little nervous. Cause I've seen other people do it before, and gold leafing isn't the most forgiving material to work with. Once I felt the Mod Podge was dry, I carefully tried to tear off the rest of the foil. I repeated that process for the edges of the crown and the back so it was completely covered in gold. Then I added another layer of Mod Podge over the whole thing to seal it, but apparently I didn't film that for some reason, so my bad. After the sealing layer dried, to attach the crown to the hoop, I slathered the bottom edge of the back of the crown and the top of the hoop with E6000. I probably should have used super glue, but oh well, hindsight's 20/20. And now for the finishing touch, the pearls. I used E6000 and a sewing pin to hand apply these flat back pearls onto the edge of the ribbon trim all the way around the hoop. Not exactly the most riveting thing in the world to watch, but it's very relaxing and therapeutic to do in real life. Now for the question of the video. If you like ballet, which one is your favorite? For me, most of my life it was Swan Lake, with Giselle in like a close second in recent years. However, a few months ago, Swan Lake got dethroned. Now my favorite is Matthew Bourne's Sleeping Beauty. My mutual on TikTok and fellow Maleficent trash Dust Hollow recommended it to me, and I found the pro shot on YouTube, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. Life forever changed. I'll link it in the description for you guys to watch, and it's also on DVD. I highly recommend that you check it out. Once the E6000 glue is set, all that's left to do is add the pin and voila! Isn't she lovely? Let me know in the comments if you use this video to make your own pin hoop, and if you posted it on social media, feel free to tag me. I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky now, and I love seeing what other people make. With all that said, take care of yourselves, guys. May those who accept their fate be granted happiness, and may those who defy their fate be granted glory. And I'll see you guys next time.